So we should be live. I'm just going to wait until I see it. What's up, YouTube? If you can see us, this is rare. So make sure you share it because, yeah, they deleted my YouTube, then they gave it back, and then they started giving me strikes. So just madness. Okay, great. We are on YouTube. So that is a blessing. And let me just hit the recording because we got to back everything up. Even if you're talking about food abundance. Okay, here we go.
Listen, this is the blueprint for freedom for the world. I'd love to get this one backed up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Mastermind Body and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. As you know, we are currently overcoming extreme censorship. So if you want to support this show, please share episodes far and wide. Consider becoming a member at mattbelair.com because they deleted my Patreon. And apparently they've deleted the podcast from iTunes at times where you can't find us. So they're doing all kinds of nonsense. So if you want to support the show, please become a member, share. But most importantly, consider doing 3 kind acts wherever you are in the world today. Today's guest is a former All-American wrestling champion, world traveler, and successful entrepreneur. Since discovering permaculture, he is on a mission to bring it to every household in the world. He is the founder of Food Forest Abundance and speaks about sovereignty, entrepreneurship, mindset, and freedom. Welcome to the show, Jim Gale.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. It's a pleasure to be on your show. And I want to say, you just said 3 kind acts. And I can't stop thinking about that. How freaking genius is that to have that be your goal, your inspiration, right? And what I've been studying and going so deep with all sorts of different tools, from ayahuasca and shrooms to lots of meditation, is how do we best serve on every level? And when selfishness and service and love align, then we've got the perfection of everything, right? Because we are individuals. We are here to manifest and create on an individual level. And that's the opposite of what communism and socialism want us to do. So on every level, it's our awareness that we have the ability to serve and to do kind things that are kind to us, right? So anyway, I thank you for putting that out there. That's beautiful.
Oh man, well, I love it. Well, you know, I got reached out by your team, and then I was going through your bio, and I was like, we're such kindred spirits. All-American wrestling champion is absurdly hard to achieve. So you've got that mindset, then you're successful in business, which is amazing. And then you have this idea, which is absolutely brilliant. Many people have thought about it, but you're kind of pioneering, you know, pushing that forward and giving tools and supporting that way. And you've also trained with some indigenous. So as the Maasai, and that's where you travel to a lot of countries like I have as well. And so I got the 3 kind acts from David Lombear Senepas, who's a Mi'kmaq, and training with the indigenous people and, you know, learning about the land and things like that. So, yeah, man, you know, you have an amazing run. So I'd love for you to just share a bit about your story, your history, how you got to where you are today, some of the things you've experienced, and then what you're working on with Food Forest Abundance, because it's simple and it's brilliant. And, you know, with all this nonsense going on, some people are aware like, oh, they're doing some food shortage, or they're quote unquote taking rights away. And that's where understanding the law is helpful. But some people are talking about food shortage. But why would there ever be food shortage where one apple has the seeds for like 20 apple trees? All we do is live in this environment of abundance. So we kind of need to reconnect with that and shake out of our trance a little bit.
Well, without hopefully freaking out some of your listeners, because I'm a very spiritual guy and I'm not a very religious guy. I believe that a lot of religions are half-truths that also promote the fear for the intention of control. You know, controlling the keys to heaven is a pretty powerful thing to control. So do the people who control those keys have your best intention? Well, the answer is in the question. Control. Hell no, they don't. If they're about control, then they don't have the best intention for you. So a lot of things you said there. Another one is about the successes I've had, but they're all, the foundation of all the successes was the learning of all the failures and all the ways of thinking and efforting and urging and striving that weren't sustainable and weren't joyful. Right. So what I'm going to share with you and your guest today is the solutions to all the biggest problems in the world, not just from a high level, but I'm going to get right down into the dirt with you and show you exactly how we're going to go viral. And it's already happening.
That's incredible. Yeah, I love all that. So do you want to just dive into that, or do you want to talk about a little bit of your journey? Like, get developing the mindset to become an elite athlete, then transferring that to business. That's before we started. That's why I wrote Zen Athlete, because all the things I learned from martial arts and sports can be applied to business. It's necessary. Then what you've done now is kind of like the ultimate. It's like your legacy, and your legacy has to come from something that's so meaningful and fulfilling to you. And that's when you apply everything you've learned about peak performance, resilience, mindset, goal setting. And that's when all of that stuff comes out. But if all of that stuff is coming out, so like, I used it when I sold cars. Yeah, because I wanted to go traveling and it worked. I used it in sports because I wanted to be the best athlete that I could be to see what I'm capable. Yeah. But when I apply it to my podcast, and, although some of the goals, like I haven't met, whether it's, some of the financial abundance or whatever the case is, I've always had enough, but reaching number one in over 30 countries now, getting the message out, having guests like you that we can amplify something so positive. There's all of these other benefits, because the goal is, how can I be of the highest service? I need to be kind of led and guided, because my consciousness, which I also refer to as my dum-dum brain, can only handle sipping this coffee, turning on Zoom, you know what I mean? Getting through the schedule and doing simple things. I need to be guided by something greater. And so it seems like you're at that point now where you're using all of these tools. Like, what's the biggest mission that I can hold and bring forth that's going to help people in the greatest way? And I think that's so powerful.
You absolutely nailed it. The question that you just asked is the question that I've been asking myself as a joyful obsession for about 14 years, and really probably for 30. I actually started a foundation called the Wisdom Foundation back when I was 30, because that's when I really started learning about Dennis Waitley and Ziegler and Rohn and all of the great influencers of history. And I was actually traveling, and I had a backpack, and I went to Bond University in Surfers Paradise, Australia. I didn't pay to go there. I just walked up into the library every day before bartending. And I wrote my goals for the second time in my life at that university. And I wrote that I wanted to be retired in 3 years with $3 million. Like, I thought that was like all the money in the world, and that was good enough. That was my consciousness at the time. And miracles happened. There's so many quotes about this. One obvious, simple one is, if you can conceive it and believe it, you can achieve it. And I think all of these are clues to the game that we're playing. We talked a little, I mentioned religion. This idea of the Garden of Eden is not a utopian fantasy. It's the next logical step for humanity, that separation where the fear came in and all of these different disconnected elements came in, and emotions. Then we separated, and ever since then, and this gets, I know, kind of deep, but it's been govern mente that has controlled our minds. And now this is the age of enlightenment, the age of Aquarius, the age of unmasking and apocalypse, and all these things that mean the same thing. We're waking up, and it's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The government translated means to govern the mind. And also, so you can get as weird as possible on here. We've talked about ancient alien spirits, the whole thing. So as weird as possible is recommended and appreciated. So, yeah, I love to see this whole scenario, like the apocalypse, the great unveiling, right? Yes. And any transformation is not easy. You're going to go through some rough times. And it also seems to be like a test of faith, because we can grow and we can continue to participate in things that maybe don't support everybody. And there's so many jobs that are financially rewarded because, but they don't contribute to society, but people want the money. And, with religions, I've studied that as well. And I went to the Parliament of World Religions. And one of the things one of my native teachers said is that you don't need a gatekeeper to God, to the creator. Now you can use them all as clues, because I've studied a lot of them and there's a lot of good, but when you use hypnosis or something, they can take 90% of the truth and distort it. So, you can be religious for sure. But at the same time, you want to be in your own mind, in your own heart, connecting to the creator in whatever way. So, I know people have literally been in cults before, and they're so seeking truth, you know what I mean? And they just were there for a bit, but you'll always find your way. If your heart is trying to connect to the creator and creation, it's going to forgive, those things. And as long as you're in that, just trying to keep your own connection, I think is really key.
It's so key. It is the key, right? It's the direct connection, because what's in the middle of the direct connection, it's all these different thoughts and ideas and programs, right? And when your mind is like this and there's program after program, you can't download a new idea from source, right? That's why meditation and relaxation and these different tools that source has given us, like ayahuasca and mushrooms and so on, it's so perfectly, at a certain point, it has become so perfectly clear that the simplest solution is the best solution. So then my next question was, how do we get this? Like Victor Hugo said, there's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world. And I took a deep breath. I'm like, wait a minute, one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world. It's an idea whose time has come. The Garden of Eden is an idea that is planted in. Do you know anybody who doesn't know about the Garden of Eden? I don't know anybody. It's in the three major religions. There's places referred to on every religion that I'm aware of that talk about this place of abundance. So that is the idea whose time has come. So now, how do we get that idea to spread fast? That's where it gets a lot of fun.
That's amazing. Well, we can kind of divert probably forever. So let's dive into what Food Forest Abundance is. Like, what's your mission with that? What are you doing? Just tell us everything that's important.
Okay, well, so we have over a lot of time and trials and different things. Like I went in Costa Rica, I built a community in the jungle. And the first thing we did was buy a fruit tree nursery out. It was 3,000 different plants and fruit trees, right? And the whole idea was show the world how easy this is. And that's where I started digging into this permaculture, the science of permaculture. And Bill Mollison, in fact, I was going through kind of a tough time because I had learned that 9/11 was an inside job. And I had learned that the government was kind of not the best thing. In fact, the slave master. And so I went through this period having my first two daughters of kind of pain. Like I didn't know what was next. And I didn't have a vision forward. And then I read Bill Mollison's quote, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And I started to bawl. I started to sob. And from that day forward, which is about 12, 13 years ago, my question has been, how do we dial it in? So we have. And we have a food forest cooperative that is, in the last 5 months, went from 3 people to over 200 people in 15 countries and 40 states around the world. And everybody's becoming a demonstrator of what it means to have a food forest.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So when did you kick this off, and what's like the big idea? Is this, cause I've seen a couple of things come up too. And even just on Instagram, someone will just show a meme of someone's front lawn and it's just got a garden on it. Right. And you think, right, why are when you look into food and how bad it is, I've had so many guests on about gut health and cancers and things like that, the heavy metals and stuff and all this stuff they're spraying on the food. Well, this is something that's common sense that we're not doing, right? We would save a bunch of money. We get such a higher quality product. And we could also have many ways where we could connect with our community. So there's so many beautiful benefits. And kind of to go back to the religious thing, one of the things David Lombard told me was, religion is, our church is people. Right. Yeah. And so there's so many benefits to that community. Yes. And so how do we get people together? And then actually there's a side note, because I've been going down the Tartaria rabbit hole where, these ancient structures that they have now churches in there is these resonant buildings with electrical power. So man, if, it's given me confidence that I'm like, when we turn this thing over and we get the things that we're supposed to, like the technologies and the clean food, and we stop getting poisoned, what are we capable of? But I think food and water are two of the most important things. And if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're not going to be thinking about our highest potential in life and serving humanity if we're afraid of food, because fear is the number one blocker of our potential. And so it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone and really unleashes a lot of potential, because you could lose your money, but be like, hey man, I got food everywhere and I'll just get the sweet tent. I've already mentally committed since the beginning of this. I knew what was going on. And some of my friends are losing jobs and some of them are taking the jab because of different reasons. I'm like, I will live in a tent before I touch that thing, before any of this. I'm totally fine with that. Now, if it's in the tent and everybody had a cucumber, that's even better. So,
I mean, so the idea, when we turn 50% of the 40 million acres of American lawn into food forests, regenerative agriculture, we reverse mass extinction and deforestation and cancer and diabetes and heart disease and tyranny of all kinds. Because that is the foundation of our enslavement, is the unhealth, the dis-ease, which is fear, and disease, which is the physical manifestation of fear. Right? So you nailed it. So what comes first, enlightenment or the food forest? Well, they're synonymous with each other, because when you're aware of the simplicity of having a great abundant society, a food forest is the next logical step. When you have a food forest, you automatically raise your vibration, right? So this idea, my job is to inspire and empower the next step, which is planting seeds. And then that's what my company does. We professionally design food forests for people.
That's amazing. I love that. And the seed thing is so important too. When you look at, it's like anyone you turn over, just like with what's going on. And I don't, I'm going to get banned anyway. So I just use it as a platform now. But, Monsanto, they patent genetically modified seeds, spray them so farmers can't use it. If you look at what's happened in farming in the last 20 years, it's absurd. And I remember being in Whistler, you went the All-American wrestling route, and I was wrestling too in high school, and I just wanted to snowboard, and I was learning about all this stuff, and I'm looking at like how they're systematically is de-farming a word? That's what I've been saying. I don't know, just destroying the farms in the States and in Canada. And like, why would they do that? And like, well, if you control the food, you control the people, immensely. I'm like, oh man. But then you look at the seeds thing, and it's just so disheartening, the level that this goes. And it's because we've been distracted. We've been sedated. We're not holding our little communities responsible. And these things, they're public servants. Everybody's afraid of their public servant. They're afraid of their mayor. They're afraid of their police. They're afraid of the politicians. They're there to serve us. And as we've been asleep, right? They call it in Canada, a child of the province, which means you haven't grown up into a man or a woman that can handle their own estate because we've been asleep. They were supposed to educate us, but they removed that. So now this is like a reawakening for those who want accountability, responsibility, and the people that want to do this, like you and I and the others, we want to cooperate. We want a better world for everyone, and we don't want to participate in things that cause harm. So that group of people, it doesn't need to be even 50%. It doesn't even be 10%. It just needs to be a very small percent. And as we create a solution, everyone's going to want to get on board with that. And this is a very powerful beginning.
It is. And all paths to freedom have to at least, at minimum, include this. Right? Because you can't be free. Like you said, it was Henry Kissinger that said over 50 years ago, if you want to control nations, control oil. If you want to control people, control food. Now, he was, I believe, the head of the Council of Foreign Relations. He was a deep state, non-elected guy that was in charge. You don't just say things. That was his strategy, not just a term he used. Right? It was his job to help make that happen, which has destroyed the family farm and created basically one company controls all the food supply, Vanguard, and they control pretty much everything, right? And so our job is to have faith. I believe that that's a huge part of it, to raise up above fear, know that we are spirit, not this avatar, and know that we can create our way into the next thing. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Well, I love that. And so with the gardens, like, let me touch on that, because I was going to also touch on like the fear aspect. That's the big one going around. And, like a friend of mine might lose his job because he doesn't want to take it, but he has a family to support. And there's all these different things. Fear is a huge thing. But as far as the food goes, with proper seeds and what you're able to do with your company, how does one begin with that and says, you know what, I want my front lawn to be a sweet farm, and you help with like different geographical regions, because Canada is a bit of a pain in the ass, depending on where you are, but I'm sure you can do something anywhere you are.
Anywhere you are, there's food. We have food forests going on mountaintops and deserty mountaintops in California and Utah. We have them going in Poland and all over the world. It could, in fact, my buddy, Chad Johnson, northern Minnesota, he's got a food forest that has 300 different species of edible and medicinal plants. He has no fences. He's got moose or bear and wolves and deer and everything there. In fact, it's so abundant that he's got like 7 types of frog and 4 types of turtle and a bird from Russia that nobody's ever seen in the United States before, right? At least not documented. And it's expanding on its own. Like, the only reason that we don't have this everywhere is because of the poisons and the poison producers of our world. and government, which are the same people that run the government. So if in permaculture, we turn the problem into the solution. If you could narrow down the problem to one single thing, then it is local regenerative agriculture. That wipes them out. And it's peaceful, it's loving, it's joyful, it's good on every level.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I love that. Can you repeat that again? The problem at the small solution is regenerative permaculture?
Is regenerative agriculture, local. And I'm going to get a little deeper into this because most people have been programmed to believe it'll bring in the snakes, it'll bring in the spiders, it'll bring in the blah, 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 right? These are all programmed fear, right? This is all bullshit. Spiders and snakes together kill 11 people per year. Cancer and diabetes and heart disease, how many people do they kill a year? Like, it's mind-blowing, but yet people aren't planting fruit trees and berry bushes because they have the idea that it's going to be hard work, or they're not a farmer, or something's not right about that. When if all we did was use the current ornamental landscapes that we have and plant edible landscapes with the same general structure, we'd be free.
Yeah, that's it. And, in my, being a homeowner for a short period of time, I'm looking at what, my neighbors are growing grass, things like that. You just substitute a lot of it or even 30% of it for something that will produce food. Yeah. Right. And each environment will have something else. And if you look at the show like Survivor Man or whatever the case is, there is food everywhere. We just don't know how to use it. And there's herbs for healing everywhere. We've just forgotten that information. And so this is almost a time where we need to reclaim it. And so for those people out there who kind of know what's going on, they kind of see this, we're going to be the ones that start to engage with the solutions, right? Unfortunately, it's not built for us where we can just walk into it. But the beautiful thing is we can build that for our neighbors, for our community. We can be leaders in our community in a simple way. And we're also going to then pass that on with the kids, because what I've learned with law, some of the stuff that's been frightening, I look at all the chaos that's going on with the world. But after doing the law summit, it does seem like these people who have massive influence do not want to break the karmic law. They, of taking away your free will, because apparently they know there's consequences for that in higher realms. And so, but when they scare the crap out of you, like they're going to take your free will away and murder you with all these things, you're then in a paralysis. Yeah. Right. You're not, it's like, you would know this for wrestling. If you're terrified, you're going to get whooped. And I know this from snowboarding. If I'm going to go try an advanced maneuver that has high consequence, if I'm afraid, I am done. I'm not doing it. Right. I would do things with very high consequence somehow without fear, because I trusted in my body. And this is the, maybe the faith idea for some people, to trust that there's going to be a way, but the best thing that they can do is scare the bejesus out of you. And I don't think I've ever said bejesus, but I think it's necessary this time. But everybody is so kind of paralyzed in fear that they're disconnecting from creation and what they're capable of. So even if you're afraid, that's okay. Just do what you can to build the courage and faith to find the solution and know you're going to be taken care of.
You're so right on, buddy. It's like Tesla said, if you want to change the future, think in terms of what energy, frequency, and vibration. And the emotions correlate to our frequency, our vibration. And David, I believe it's Dr. David Hawkins, not Hawking, not the guy in the wheelchair, but a different guy who wrote the book Power versus Force. Fantastic book about how we feel and how we resonate. And when we can raise that resonance, that vibration, as Tesla was referring to, love is going to be more energized than shame at the other end of the spectrum, right? So it's kind of all the same message, and it all happens kind of simultaneously as we pay attention and we make conscious decisions. I would never do any type of action if I was scared intentionally. Sometimes I'll fight through that and speak on a stage or something, but then I turn the words from scared to excited, and something happens. It's magical.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, what I'd love for you to touch on a little bit is your thoughts on how you see things playing out and what you'd recommend for people, because it is a scary time for a lot of people. They might have to let go, but you've used this process, right, to kind of build your business and be successful in sports. But now you're engaging in that life mission. And some people are having their whole worlds explode, or even having the courage to stand up to say no about these mandatory, medical procedures. We've had a lot in our law group already be successful, but very few of them have the courage to say no, and we provide them with the paperwork. So, if that's happening to you, check out the Freedom Law Summit. Check out my Telegram, t.me/Matt Belair. I can give you great documents in Canada, US, and around the world where, you can do that. But it takes this spiritual will to say, no, I'm willing to have whatever quote unquote consequence may or may not happen, to stand up for what I know is right. Because if you bend now, you're going to keep bending. Right. And whatever, it's not going to be one or two, it's going to be forever. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So you got to figure out where your line in the sand is. And so how would you, you know, engage with, what you've learned about goal setting and, journaling, and like engaging in who they are and overcoming this great challenge? Because one of the things that I've thought is that if we all knew who we were and what we were made to do, our life purpose or life direction that inspired us, this world would be magical. Everybody has a unique gift and we can be supported in that way. We can be nurtured. And that's the most important thing. We need to figure out who we are and how we can contribute to our community, rather than how can I make the most amount of money possible.
Yeah. There's one foundation of the freeing of the mind, and that is the meditation with intention, right? Intending to move towards something joyful or loving. And in selfishness, when you can serve and love the process of serving, then it becomes like this magical loop of regeneration. In fact, our business model is very unique in that we're bringing in a lot of income. We've had several $1 million in the first 5 months of transactions, and other several million of investments. We've had a TV show. The producer of The Crocodile Hunter reached out to me, said, we want to make you the Steve Irwin of permaculture. And that was my favorite show in the world growing up. And then one of my next favorite shows, the main actor in that show called me about the exact same time. And we just got done filming a TV pilot. So as soon as I let go of the fear, and I had some for a while, and completely settled into a daily practice of meditation and just moving forward with intention, it's been freaking magic everywhere.
That's outstanding, man. You're obviously in the vibe if you're getting that kind of feedback from the universe. So what would you say is like the starting process for somebody that's like, most of the people that I know, like that are, like, if you're off track for your life purpose, a lot of time the universe will explode that for you. You'll get or you'll lose your job, you'll get hurt, things like that. Now it's like almost a planetary one. Do you
Yes.
want to still participate in this, even though you know it's wrong and something's going on? Like my partner's a teacher, and I've said, look, you're an amazing teacher. All the kids love you and you do a great job. The thing is, that system is not the greatest system. That system is designed to bung kids' minds up, and you could do a lot of great good outside of that system if you can kind of really think about why did you get into teaching. Now, I have a buddy who's a medical doctor, right? And they silenced a lot of them. One of my buddies gave up his medical license, and I was like, if you want health, you got to now recognize that system you're a part of, and could you shift it so they have something that was paying the bills, and they might not have experienced that feedback or success that you've had. So what would be like your guidance for that prayer, that intent as they're starting off, and to keep that thread alive?
I love that detailed question. Writing lists of positive things in your life, writing goals, imagining, visualizing you sitting somewhere that inspires you, or learning something that inspires you. It's all about raising the energy and the vibration of things. And meditation has been absolutely profound. Now, there were times when I believe that ayahuasca, I don't think I'd be sitting here without having had those experiences. With a shaman, and then a lot of meditation and different groups where I learned different tidbits that helped me release myself of all those fears.
That's amazing. Well, I've definitely experienced that. Well, if you're in Costa Rica, you probably had some ayahuasca down there.
Yes.
I know it can be very beneficial. I've definitely done it, and it was very helpful for me. And I feel like your spirit needs to be ready, because on the dark side, that I'll just mention because people always ask me now, and I used to be like, yes, 100%, but I realized not everybody had that same will, that same intent. Right. And it's a very serious, very serious endeavor. And so if your heart is ready and your mind is ready and you're looking for a tool that can support, you can find the right guide, but also the place, the right guide, shaman and experience is all very important. I've heard of people like, yeah, I just made some up and tried. I was like, you did? You were nuts. Like,
It's a
you're
skill.
totally nuts. Like, that is the great, you should not do that. This is, you have to treat it with the utmost respect.
Yeah, it takes a high level of consciousness to be a shaman. I mean, people that say they're shamans but haven't went through the process. I'm no shaman. Like, that's a process that takes a lot of time and energy to start fitting in. So I agree completely. Another thing that I want to share, kind of related to that thing about the money flowing, is I think that it's control and fear based when these large corporations are storing hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. I think Apple, which has a bite out of it, is so representative of what's going on right now, right? And Microsoft, it's amazing that you've got computer entities here that want everything to be computerized, and then you've got nature over here, right? So anyway, our business model is to keep it flowing in. So we're building all these food forests at our cost in public areas, and we're not going to store a bunch of money. We're going to always turn that, because money is just a representation of energy. So we're going to turn that energy back into more food forest, which in turn becomes more marketing, which gets us more business, which in turn gets us more. And it's going to, it took us 2 years to go from relatively slave normal to completely enslaved in a lot of places. I think that this is a good idea as a counterbalance to that bad idea. And I don't think it's going to take long.
Yeah, really. And especially when I look at what's going on, it does seem like they have a planned food shortage with all this kind of stuff. And within the United States, there's a lot of import export when you could grow everything there. And when we're thinking about health and vitality and mindset, and you start getting into consciousness in the pineal gland and what they're doing to the food, like eggs, for example, you get factory eggs. There might be a lot of crap in there that actually is not good for you. Now you get, an actual chicken that's normal chicken. Eggs are great for you, right? So you look at meat and things like that and you're like, oh, I eat a lot of meat and that's okay, right? Or sorry, vegans. But even if you have a lot of cucumbers, right, they have metals in the cucumbers too, so you still eat the cucumber. But if you're growing it, you're not getting that. It's like this is a good analogy. If I'm in a fight, right, and I'm training for a fight and I'm hitting the punching bag and I'm all, and I got sweet kick and it's gonna hurt, right? Or wrestling, right? That's all great. So you're a wrestler, so it's all great when you're fine. But if I punch you really hard in the face and then I kick you in the liver, now all of a sudden your energy is so depleted. So your maximum potential is not there. You have to fight through that. Now you have to get work to do. And so as we have all of these hindrances on our minds and our bodies and our spirits, literally all directions, it just hinders our potential to being, feeling good, having a high vibration, being more kind, being more empowered, being more connected to spirit. And all of those things really factor in, and they start with food and water and security.
Yep, they sure do. And all of these things, there's poisons on every level. Like the vibrational poison is fear. And then there's all the physical that are coming from the air and the water and the thing. But that's how powerful nature is. For when those poisons are done, which I think they will be in the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years at the most, I think they're done. Nature is going to explode with life. I mean, right outside here, I just did a video on this today. There's these red hearts, right? And on the red heart, it says, keep your pets and kids off the grass. We just sprayed with poison. That's freaking insane, right? They sprayed with gas and they put a red heart around it, right? Saying this is poison. This is what's killing our world. There's parasites at every level. The mosquito killed more people than any other animal or bug, right? They're parasites, and the same thing goes at every level. And to break free from those, that's what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's getting in harmony with nature and what's right. We notice that something's wrong, and it's going to require each and every one of us to just stand up in our own situation. We can't fix everything for everyone. What we can do for sure is improve our own situation. So, when it's almost like everyone's drowning. So if you can just swim, that's great. If that's all you can do right now is just float, so that way someone doesn't have to come pick you up with the boat. Like, okay, you're swimming, you're okay. And then over time, you're going to build your own boat and your own raft in metaphorical terms and
Yeah.
be able to help other people. So if you're providing for your family or your friends or your community, it doesn't have to be worldwide. It just needs to be in your little sphere, and then
Yep.
that can ripple out, right? So, a lot of the people I talk to, they just feel like it's so big. There's nothing they can do, but your immediate environment and your immediate town.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it was I'm pretty sure it was on a podcast. Someone was just telling me how like the whole Agenda 2030, it goes right down to the community level. It has
Yes.
to be, right?
Yeah.
And it's such this big, audacious, ridiculous plan that they think they're going to overcome nature and the human spirit. And if you look at these guys' words, they talk about that. They talk about overcoming and taking out the ghost in the machine and how free will won't matter. No, it matters. And you are going against the most spiritual and powerful force in the universe. What a crazy thing. So that's it. We should know that that's a crazy intent, first of all. But now we have to like counterbalance and understand what's going on and realize that when we engage in our own power, just our small sphere, it's going to ripple out. So when they come to your community, walk your butt down there, right? Just by yourself or with 5 friends, right? They're counting on you not doing anything. They're like cats, big cats will hunt. They don't want to be seen. They're cowards. And if you look at, there's a book called The Gift of Fear. Anybody who harms other people, they're not powerful people. They don't want people who are fighting back. They stay in the shadows like little
Yes.
evil skunks.
Yes. Yes.
So, right, that's the powerfulness, to just face it. So if we can stop it in our own communities, they don't expect the pushback, and we can definitely do that, and we will do it, and we will succeed.
Yeah, absolutely, because their way is unsustainable. It cannot be sustained, right? It always, throughout history, Thomas Jefferson said the tree of liberty must be nourished from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants, for that is its natural manure. I think that we can go to the next level on that. I do think there are already, actually, and there will be more wars around, but the actual solution is not war. This, to defend yourself, is absolutely right, but that's short term. Long term, to defend yourself is to create what we're talking about, abundance everywhere, and to raise the vibration.
Yeah, and there's this like meme that goes around. It's like I don't know if it was like revolution versus protest. If everyone's like protesting, great. Now, from what I've learned from the law and stuff like that, they say it's not the best idea. Really understand the law, hold your public servants accountable with good paperwork, which anybody can figure out in a short time because there's a lot of
Yes.
information out there, especially when we work together. That's going to be more effective because we're looking for what's effective. But real revolution, planting a garden. So if you can do that and 5 of your neighbors do it, and all of a sudden your food's secure, and now you're connected with your neighbors, you're in a much more powerful place, right? And so then we start to weave in the law, and understanding law and legal is very different. It's a little bit more convoluted, but this is how we start to move that energy because we know the difference between right and wrong, right? And so
Right.
we want to move towards that energy of sustainability, and their whole thing works on scarcity,
Yeah.
right? So, if everybody's got good, clean food, there's not a lot of worries.
Right, right. And this idea of choice, exactly, clean food, it's going to take health back. And then their main control grid, which is the medical system, is freaking made irrelevant. Right. And then the cost of it. Yeah. I love going back to the simplest solution. What's the next step? Right. Write down your goals in a way that inspires us. Right. And then how do I live healthy, and how do I make conscious choices? Because the word choice implies that there's an awareness of choice. Most people are literally programmed and doing the same things over and over, yelling at the same people and all this stuff because they're not aware. And again, that comes back to centering yourself and having faith and courage and coming to this place of, do I really want to eat that next freaking Dorito? And then, oh, no, I don't. Or do I really want to keep yelling at somebody? And you take a breath and you're like, wait a minute, I'm the one yelling. And then it goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of what we're talking about here is the personal empowerment, right?
Yeah.
You understanding your own mind and what you're capable of. And because we're looking at everything, or me, I'll just say myself and a lot of people I talk to, is the world as a whole and just coming back to these basics. So it's such a brilliant plan. And have you ever heard of the urban farmer, Curtis Stone?
Oh, big time. I love Curtis.
Oh yeah, cool. I was gonna say, if you aren't connected, you got to know him. But he's kind of been on this kick for a long time, and I always love talking to people who are very optimistic about the future because a lot of the pessimism is on the screens, and it's also getting people to stand at the side. But I see every day more and more resistance as the tyranny continues. The resistance unfolds, and good people don't want to be confrontational. They don't want combat. They don't want altercation. They definitely don't want to have to defend themselves, and so these people are forcing that upon them right
Yeah.
now, attacking. So as they do that, it's going to force more people off the bench that
Yep.
didn't want to have to get off the bench, but you've now given them no choice because in their world, they thought this was going to go away. They didn't really want to wake up to the uncomfortable situation. So more and more people are going to do that. And we want that peaceful solution. And that's what it can be. Like if you look at what Gandhi was able to do and, what we could do during this, hopefully, epic, monumental awakening revolution to move towards something that is sustainable, right? And to see these things that are parasitical, wherever they are, whether they're systems or
Yeah.
whether they're people or whether they're organizations, to just have an opportunity where you don't have to engage in it, right? That it's very limited in its power because it's not something that you want to engage with. You have something that's so much better that why would you even engage with that in the first place?
You nailed it. And that's where laws that make us have insurance or make us do a lot of these things, that's the foundation of force and violence, which goes to socialism and capitalism. And when we raise our energies, we want to give to the neighbor. We're giving away so many seeds. I've given away like 2,000 moringa trees because it feels good. Right? Because I know that that's going to be beneficial to them. That feels good on that level. And then it's going to create food for our world. And the layers of benefit just stack in every direction with this.
When you said that, I kind of had like a little bit of analogy. Some of the ways that I've kind of put out, work and what you do. If you rather than seeing about money, how can you give an offering to someone that's helpful, like provide value in some sort of way?
Yes.
So as you have a tree there, it's like this little vibration. This little thing. So whatever we're doing as an individual, how can we, provide value that's that little vibration, that little bit of good energy out to the universe. And that's what we can be responsible for. And when we die, that's going to be it. That's what your mirror is going to come up, whether it's you or whatever your version of the creator is, that you're going to be judged and you're not going to be able to get away from yourself. It's
Right.
what did you put out? That was your responsibility. This whole everything else it was always bigger than you,
Yeah.
right? It's always it has to be a great mystery because we have to have the free will choice to do what's right and what's good. And it's unknown and it's not guaranteed.
Right.
When people are like, oh, like I've had people say, what have you gained about speaking out about this? I was like, nothing. Like the complete opposite. The show has been demoed and been attacked all over the place. Like it's been a real pain in the butt, but it's the right thing to do. It's the I only can like look at the each day and each moment and say, what's the right thing that I can do? I'm not always correct, but I have to listen to like my heart. It's like when you're a kid and
Yeah.
you do something wrong, you steal someone's, car, right? Their dinky car, or you slap someone, you see they got hurt and you feel terrible on the inside, right? You're like, oh, I shouldn't do that because that's not what I want to be doing.
Right. It
Right. I want to
hurts.
be. So I like the tree. Like, how can we send out these vibrational hits, whether it's through our work or the three kind acts during a day or our vocation or anything like that?
And you alluded to it. We are all connected. Life either is expanding or it's contracting. Fear is the ultimate contraction of the spirit, of the soul, of energy, right? So faith and courage and joy and love is expansion. So when we focus our energy on those higher vibrations, which is an emotional compass, it's very easy to follow. If you're feeling shitty, you know it. If you're feeling inspired, you know it. So what's making you feel inspired? And doing more of that and being aware and following that path is just fun as heck.
Yeah, it's a much better adventure, and you get better at it. If this
Yeah.
is new to you, right? Like I know a lot of people listen to the show, they kind of understand it, but there's always risk involved. You know what I mean? There's when you're designing your life on purpose, there's always risk. And I've been doing coaching for a long time, and basically what I'll talk to people about is when I go to Burning Man or these different places that say, "How do you like your life?" and they talk about the default world, and they're like, "Oh, I don't really like it." I was like, "Well, do you not realize you can design any life that you want? You can literally design any life you want. And if you design that life that lines up with your values, your passions, your curiosities, and as you think, it might take a little bit of thinking and effort, then, how can you provide some value for someone else? They will reciprocate and compensate you for that. But it's not about what you can get, it's about what you can give and how you can master yourself even more. Like just a, I don't a master swordsman, he's like, I
Yeah.
want to be a master swordsman. I love making swords. His first sword is not going to sell for that much. But when he's 90 years old and he's made thousands of swords, it's like, this is a $200,000 sword because it's made of the most master craft. But he worked through that process, just like Van Gogh. You talk about mushrooms.
Yeah.
I was in what the heck was I, Holland? What's the capital? Amsterdam. And
Amsterdam.
so you're
Okay.
able to get like the truffles or whatever. So I just got a little bit, and I was gonna go to a different museum, but I ended up going to Van Gogh because I was waiting in line. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to go here. So I go in there and I'm listening to his life story, and I've got mushrooms a little bit, and I was like, his
Oh,
paintings are unbelievable. Like when I was younger, I was one of those dummies that's like, oh yeah, you could do that. It's like, and I even heard someone say that, and I'm looking at this painting. I was like, this is the most unbelievable shit I have ever seen. It's amazing what it could do with paint. But listening to his story, he never was successful in he wasn't making a ton of money. He didn't live in a mansion. He wasn't doing all these, right? I want to be an artist so people have 100,000 or a million Instagram followers and everybody looks at my art. That's nice if you get there, but
yeah.
he did it. Now he stands the test of time as what a human is capable of. He followed his spirit. He was like, his family is giving him money. Like he just went through the ringer to be one of the greatest artists of all time that can never be taken away, that inspires generations. So who are you? Right. And he wasn't thinking about what I could get. He was thinking about how do I develop who I am? And what he wanted to do was bring out the spirit in man in painting. Right.
Yeah.
And he would paint people that like little potatoes, little farmers, like underground. Like you would never think about that as a painting, like these little rooms where people are just having potatoes on the, like a little dinner like that. And I was like, that is such a beautiful story. Right. And so some people you might gain a lot of money, but you might not. And to him, he's not going to regret his life. He'd be like, that was it. Wow, look what I did on the other
Yeah.
side.
That is so cool. I could care less about money now. Now that I've done both, now I love energy and I love freedom, and money represents that. So I'm not saying I don't care about it from that perspective, but the money itself, like thinking about how much money I have in the bank doesn't enter my mind. Thinking about what we're doing and what we're creating is, in fact, this is a process that everybody listening can do, and it made a huge difference in my life. It's called a value solicitation. And it's when you meditate, and there's different probably YouTube videos that you can watch, but you ask questions. What do I want? And you have a list of things that you write down, like freedom and love and joy and travel and adventure and romance and all these different things, right? Money. And see, that it's funny that was the last one. And what I love, what I value more than anything is creating beauty and creating things. I'm a developer. I love designing and developing different things. That the ultimate design that I've ever imagined is the Garden of Eden, right? And enlightenment, which is kind of synonymous. So how do we design that? Well, let's just start talking about it, right? And then all of a sudden you find out that it's already been proven all over the world. So then my job doesn't have to be design. It's already done. What do I have to do? I have to speak to as many people as I possibly can. I get to, big word difference. I get to because it's what I love about life. Speak to and help as many people as I possibly can see that this is not only possible, but embarrassingly simple logic.
That's amazing. I love that. Like the combination of the Garden of Eden and enlightenment couldn't be like a loftier goal. And, you know, when we're talking about, yeah, the financial thing, right? That's our world runs on that. And money equals freedom. It's just putting the cart before the horse, right? You know, that can definitely be in your cards, and you can make great abundance. And you probably are going to be more likely to make great abundance by really knowing who you are and what that value set is. It's just, you can't be like, this is what I'm going to get,
Yeah.
because it's not the most honest pursuit. You
Right.
know, so it's just like looking at that and knowing you'll be taken care of, because there's also stages, right? And earning it. So, you know, as your mastery increases, so does your value and worth.
You just reminded me of something so important. You alluded to it. When I was 29, money was number one. Like that's what I wanted to do. I had been a bartender and with a teaching degree, and I wanted to finally make real money. And so that was my goal. And then after you do that, who gives a shit, right? And then there's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Like Merlin's, when he handed King Arthur a comb, a mirror, and a doll. Right. And every one of those things were King Arthur's number one thing at that time in his life, the most important thing in their life. At one time, it was a comb. I remember those days in seventh grade where a lot of my friends, their comb was their most important asset.
Yeah, and it's honoring that stage that you're in, right? And using that same thing. So it's not bad, or to say, you know, you're wrong. It's the idea of like, what's the most ultimate pursuit? Who could you be? You know, what is your highest potential for yourself? But I see it as like legacy. You
Yeah.
know, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? And you just kind of do it day by day. And it doesn't have to be worldwide. It doesn't have, you don't need to be on a stage. It's just like that intrinsic feeling of what you know. And so I see, like, you know, those masters who've done it, sometimes they've done it on a world stage, but sometimes they've done it in really small stage where they've affected a community. But, you know, when we're kids, right, we want it so quick, right? In your company, I think you know, had 1.3 billion in profit or sales or something nuts. So you know, you dedicated that mindset to it. Then you're like, okay, I'm able to achieve that. Now what's next?
Yeah.
Right. And now we're having this offer. So, you know, in my group last week, we were talking about that. How do we bridge this gap between passions and who we are and money? And I said, well, you start that gap prayer, right? It's like you pray for the gap, right? It's like, okay, Spirit, show me a way to earn, you know, the money that I need. Because I've seen this before. A mom with 6 kids, she's generating like 15, 20 grand, right? Like kind of easily, right? And other people who don't need the same abundance, they're not. Right. And so when it's not about just the abundance, it's about the experience. Like when I'm traveling or training with the elders, or, you know, when you were training, I didn't need a lot of money. I didn't need a lot of money to snowboard and travel to, you know, a bunch of countries. I was able to create a way as I wrote out the goals and what was most important. And I trained with all the different people that was the most important. And it would have been way more comfortable at 50 grand or 100 grand in the bank, but I had enough to go do the thing that I wanted to do to get the experience. Maybe if I had that money, I'd be pissing around more, you
You're
know, checking out casinos, you know what I mean? I would have been like, oh, because, you know, I'd say if I was a rock star, I would just be like dead at like 25. I would have got everything. So,
right.
you know, you got to work with the spirit. But I knew in all those trainings, I got to where I needed. I want to train with Shaolin monks. I want to train with indigenous elders. I want to travel to all these different countries, right? And to build the character. Now at this stage, I ask those same questions again. And how can I be of highest service and get what I need? And so, you know, if you're trying to bridge that gap, just use it in prayer. Show me a way to have my financial needs met. You can write down that number,
Yeah.
right? While you know, I'm doing something that's helping my community. Obviously, spirit is going to help you with that. The creator is going to help you with that. The universe wants you to succeed with that. But you don't get it without a risk, without a leap of faith. I've never seen anybody just go, okay, spirit, you know, I want this, but I need to see like 50 grand in my bank first and like it to all work out. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. No matter where you came from, there was always a leap of faith to go to that level where you're creating life deliberately, you know, from your heart and soul.
As a man thinketh, so is he, right? It's written in all the scripts. The law of attraction is the most powerful law in the universe. And faith is really just intentionally focusing forward and then helping to be aware of those programs that bring us backwards and that point us in the wrong direction. And then being, and then shedding that, however we do it. And that's the fun. That's the part is how do we adjust our view towards those things that we want? And then calling them out, and then we just keep taking one step after the next, because one thought begets the next thought, which begets the next thought. So when you have your thoughts going in a direction of joy, then you're good.
Yeah, and I'd love to ask you, as being an entrepreneur and kind of doing it in several fields, what's your advice for people who are trying to navigate it? Like if you have one or 10 pieces of advice, because, you would think about creating these gardens and you're like, oh, that's a great idea, but how do I make money from that? So how do you wrap yourself around like the business side? Because a lot of people who want to do good or help, they're like, I don't know, I can't charge for that, or I don't know how to do it. How do you make it so it's so much value that you're going to get compensated and you can roll it in a business model? Like one simple thing that I've just told my clients and stuff is like, well, if you help 1 million people a year and it's a $1 offer, right? Whether it's an ebook you sold for $1, whether it's like this little thing you sold for $1, whether, and you kind of go through, it's $100 and you sell 10,000 or whatever, but there's the value in that change, it's the value in what you give them. So, with Zen Athlete, it could be, $100 program for the whole thing. But if I
Right.
could help 100,000 kids a year and they go through that training,
Yeah.
who they will become after that training is incredible. So Spirit showed me a way to do that, right? So you can really find things that provide value for other people, and
Yeah.
you start to see it as being possible, and you're like, oh my goodness, right? This is amazing. And that's where you start to light up and find solutions for
Yes.
these gaps.
Yeah, for sure. And you asked about the business model. It's a lot like landscape. It is landscaping. And in landscaping, we advocate a 40% margin, and a few little backstories. One is I created an FDD, a franchise disclosure document 3 years ago. And I looked at this 244 pages of bullshit and I threw it in the trash. I had an 89-page operations manual. I threw that in the trash. We now have a 2-page contract. We have no non-competes, no non-disclosures, no patents, none of that stuff. We are about the voluntary exchange of value. Our company helps inspire cooperatives, who are the people that are on the ground helping to design and install these edible landscapes, these food forests. Our whole mission is to serve the cooperative. So we create marketing platforms. I do podcasts like this. We inspire the customer to take the next step. And then once they get a design, we hand the design with the eager customer over to the local cooperative, and the cooperative does the install and makes about $1,000, $1,500 a day.
That's amazing. I love that. And what it reminded me of actually is, have you ever heard of Ubuntu and Michael Tellinger?
Yes, I have.
Of course. Nice. Yeah, everybody. So, I just thought about it. You're, one small town you're in. Why aren't our towns landscaped that way?
Well, they're
Right?
going to be. They're going to be, because we can show them. In fact, one of our designers, Crystal, wrote up a document at our request with all the reasons, using their language, their bullshit narrative language, right in their face, where they cannot deny that if you have local regenerative agriculture, you're going to have happier and healthier homeless people. You're going to have more life, more vibrancy, healthier water, healthier streams. And this, my least favorite one, your carbon footprint is going to go way down. Right. But one of my favorite ones is their use of plastics, and plastics going into the ocean and landfills is going to go way down. Right. So using their own language and speaking to their gods, we can show them that this is the solution. And then there's the rest of us who want to do it for health and wellness and joy and freedom. So in other words, it fits everybody's narrative except for the poison producers.
Yeah, wow, that is really amazing. It's such a simple idea, and it's so beautiful and so tangible. And so if you're listening to this, you could just engage by, you say, oh, that's a good idea. Well, I'm gonna plant one tree. I'm gonna do something. And you don't have to invent the idea too. Like a lot of people, when I was helping them, they said, well, I don't know what I do. Well, what's out there that inspires you? Go volunteer, right? A lot of the people I trained with, I reached out to them and said, I said, hey, I like your work, and a lot of them helped me and they mentored me, and I figured out something that I would do for them. I will work for you. I will help you so I can learn how to do that. So initiatives like this and other initiatives out there, if you're inspired, just engage in ones that already exist, right? And the closer you get to your joy, it's going to lead you to the next step. So, that's really powerful what you're doing. Is there anything that you wish that I'd asked, or you think that's important to talk about before we, end this amazing call?
Well, thank you, buddy. Just that we are open to anybody who wants to collaborate. Our only kind of holdback is if the person advocates for force and violence, then we will not do business with them if and when and while they're advocating for force and violence. And that means mandates, that means mass, that means any kind of force and violence, right? We are about the voluntary exchange of value. We create the foundation for people to have a business that's it's literally the answer. And think about this, being positioned right now as your community's solution for food, when the food supply chain is collapsing, it's, I believe, the best possible business in the world right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, since the beginning of this, because I was having a lot of conversations with different people, and everybody thinks they're on the right, they think they're doing the right thing. So I was like, okay, what, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm doing a lot of research, so I'm pretty sure I'm on the right side, but how do I know? How
Right.
do I know that what I'm doing is helpful? And one of these quotes, my friend Mark England, who's a wizard and recommend people listen to him, he told me about this quote, and he said, anything that seeks to restrict or bind by definition is Luciferian, by Rudolf Steiner. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's not what I'm doing, right? Actually, what you're doing is inverting reality and creating fear. And you're telling, like, you can wear if you think I'm killing you by breathing the breath of life that I was given to me in my spirit, you can wear a friggin' hazmat suit. That's
Exactly.
not up to me how afraid you are. If you are afraid of a bald guy with a beard, I can't help you with that. My apologies for how I look, but what am I supposed to do with I will help you. You know what I mean? I'm nothing to be afraid of. Now, if a different bald guy with a beard starts running after you, right? I'm sorry that you had that experience. You shouldn't have done that. But what's in your reality that you'd be creating that? So I'm not trying to restrict or bind anybody. I'm only trying to help them and support them. But I also want to go peacefully on my way. And I'm going to remain peaceful unless you come with force. And at that time, I will use ninja dodging to the best of my ability, and then maybe crack you one, until you stop, And so, there's, with all this stuff going on, the more I research law, the more I connect with spirituality and creative, the more faith I have, because I know that my life will end.
Yeah.
But who I am as I live it, what I'll create, that's something that's up to me. And so when the creator wants to take me away, he will. And I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, and if it is, that's okay. So each and every day, overcoming fear, and that's it. Right. And so how much more can they make you fear? Like, oh, I'm going to starve to death, or I'm going to do this or that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can I? So my focus would be coming towards joy, coming towards love, right? Always the focus, always on what do I love about life? What do I want next? What inspires me? And then following that, and with the transition, a lot of people are in a particular situation where they're going to have to take little steps. What is the next logical step towards what I want? Right. And then you just, I allow my mind to just chill out. I meditate every day. And there's a show I saw called Messiah. Have you ever seen that one on in Netflix? Where there's this guy and he starts talking in a big storm and people start looking at him for answers. And he sits and meditates, and all of a sudden something happens and he goes, or and then it always turns out to be the best possible thing. Like, every day I'm working at, okay, what are the messages coming to me? Where is the next inspired footstep? And it's just fun. Like, it's freaking nuts. I'm 52. I've never felt better in my life.
And you have 4 daughters.
4
I got 1. So, that just shows the optimism for the generation, right? That shows like your state of mind. So, this world's going to be okay for my daughters.
It is.
It's going to be okay
epic
for the generation. Yeah.
It's going to be freaking mind-bogglingly epic, with technology not meant to control, but meant to free. And then all of the structure of freedom everywhere.
Yeah, and you hit something that was so important, where in the law of attraction, or even mindset, once you see the problem or the challenge, right? Or the fear, I'm afraid of this. So you go, okay, so what do I want, or what would be the solution, and focus there. So you're saying focus on the love or inspiration. So if you're like, oh, what if I can't eat? Okay, so what do I want? I want to make sure I have great food for my family all the time. Awesome. That's a prayer. That's an intent. There's your focus. Now it's just like in snowboarding or in sports. That's why I know for sure this stuff works, because if I look at a rail that, like, going backwards down rails on icy snow, you can have a hard consequence. If I focus on all the ways it could go wrong, which is pretty much infinite, I'm going to be toast. And so I only focus on that intent of what I want. And it's so nuts how very specific it needs to be successful. There's so many more ways for it to go wrong, but somehow all these people are doing these incredible things by focusing on what is that solution. And the other side is, if you fail, it doesn't mean failure. It means you get to try again. Exactly. Right? That's all it is. So the failure is okay. We're so, as adults conditioned to be like, failure is not okay. It's okay to fail as many times as necessary until you succeed. Always.
Exactly. The contrast is our best teacher.
Yes, 100%. And that's all we have now is contrast and what we don't want. So every time you see something you don't want, so what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And then focus there.
Yeah.
Right. And then we got this. That's what's happening with this whole, I think planetary optional evolution is as it increases in kind of dread and terror and fear, you just keep focusing on the thing that you want, and you're going to build up that character that can respond to anything.
Absolutely.
So it's a huge opportunity.
It's just the mind. It's so freaking magical. It's beyond any type of words. Like when I grew up, I loved fishing, right? And so we're now building a house at a place called Galt's Landing. And the house is going to be completely off grid. Every home site in this 10 home development on 52 acres is going to have its own complete food, water, and energy systems. Plus the 30 acres of common area are going to be food forests everywhere. We're building it now on a private 430 acre lake. We're going to have the only dock. My partner is a pilot, and there's a runway on the east coast of this, so he can park his plane in his garage. And I'm just thinking about, this is impossible. Like to think about how far we can go with this. There's no end to it. There's no end because it's a vibrational reality anyway, and there's no end to the expansion of vibration.
Oh my gosh. But I love that. And I maybe want to add, like, they condition us to think there's not enough space on the planet. The States is so much more populated than Canada. I don't know what percentage it is, but it is a lot. And I have driven through the States several times. There is so much mother effing space there. There is so much space. Canada is mother effing massive. The States is massive. Mexico has so much space, right? And then when we create these communities, these options, maybe you want to be in Costa Rica, you've been down there, Nepal, all these just magical places with so much space that can be uniquely for you. Right. And what they have us is stacked on top of each other, in these cities. Right. And people are buying into that. Right. And I was like, well, why would you want to do that? If you want to do it, great. You know what I mean? But I would rather be more connected to nature and a community. And there's enough space. Right. That, this creation is perfect. And I feel like it is a soul learning grounds, whatever this is. As far as I can tell, it's a place for us to have free will, to know who we are, to know the difference between right and wrong. But in our soul and our free will, are we going to begin to master ourselves as creators and be responsible for what we create? And that includes living life by default and just getting a job and a paycheck that may provide benefit to other people, that may actually harm people, or being in a negative system. But that's your free will choice. You don't get to say, I didn't know that, or I wasn't possible. No, you were a creator. You didn't take responsibility for the power and the opportunity that you had to create something for other people because of these programs of fear. And that's why they're everywhere, to limit that ability, because when we connect to it, it's always of service and cooperative to the environment.
Yep. Turn away from the poisons and the poison producers turn towards love and joy and abundance. And that's all the pieces are there. We just pick them up, put them in the right puzzle. And our job is to, in fact, my name is Jim Gale. Jim, I just learned, means to overthrow or supplant, right? And Gale means strong wind. And I'm thinking, that's just too far. I never believed in destiny. And I didn't not believe in it. I just never thought about it. But when my buddy just about 2 weeks ago sent me what my name means, I'm like, oh my God, that's freaking too much.
That's amazing. And actually recently someone asked me that and I never looked it up. And so I looked up my last name, which was Belair. I should look up what Matthew means. I don't know what that means yet. But Belair, the family crest or whatever, it was a lover of the virtuous. It's funny because I really love virtuous people, and I really, really, really get pissed off at people who harm other people.
Yes.
It's just like the thing of me, like, you mother, it's just so upsetting to me. And that's why I've kind of looked at these atrocities on the planet, like, how can I help? And so I've always tried to focus on the solution. And so what you have here is a really beautiful solution. So, knowing who you are, that's so important. Know who you are. You don't have to change the world, but just really connect with yourself. That's going to be enough wherever you are in the process, right? You were enough at 29, just trying to make money with that intent, right? Everyone is going through their stages, and some people wake up a bit slower, and it's important for how far you're asleep. But once you kind of wake up, that means, oh, I am a creator. I am taking accountability now, right? Because otherwise, sometimes we just do the programs from our parents or our culture or an environment. You know, and I met a guy at Burning Man actually. Yeah, I may as well go into this real quick. But you know, he's this guy, and we were chatting, and he was in the military, and he was actually part of like I don't, what's the Asian gang called?
I don't know. Buddy, I've got to run to the bathroom.
Oh,
I haven't learned to overcome that. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I'll pause it. Yeah, go ahead. I don't know if I'm still live on YouTube. If I am, I will continue the story when he gets back. I probably have to pee too, but I'll hold it for a little bit. This has been amazing. So everybody hold on. I don't have any kind of stories for tell you. I'm just saying words. If it is live on YouTube, because I can't even tell. So I actually could play these chimes. If you guys haven't checked out these chimes yet, you should, because they're freaking awesome. These vibrational chimes. If my YouTube's still up, you can go listen to them. They're really incredible for meditation. I kind of put them up on my Telegram. So whoever's not on Telegram, get on there for sure. They just did their first lockdown of WhatsApp and Facebook. So try to participate in other platforms. Telegram is good as far as I know. If that goes down, then getting information out is going to be really, really, really hard. So get over there. What else can I talk about? Nothing. I'm just going to wait. Is that better? You know, I've done 2.5 hour podcasts. I'm like, oh man, I got to pee so bad. So it's so much more comfortable after, you know. So you know, when you got to go, you got well hydrated. But you know, yeah, the story, you know, I was going to close it, but it's so important because it really illustrates the point. As at Burning Man, very fascinating environment. I'm talking to this guy. He's a former he was in that, I can't remember, the triads, I think it was, like super intense, had crazy tattoos. He's in the military, and we were chatting, and he was like, man, I did, like, he was processing. Burning Man's quite an interesting spot, but he's processing, it's such an open environment, the things that people tell you, but he had done a lot of bad things in his life, like really bad, right? Like, and he's like, man, I can't, like, he's trying to process how he forgives himself now. Yeah. Right. And I said, look, and he's telling me about a story. He's like, yo, I was raised like this, and it was friggin' intense. Right. And he's like, I didn't know. And I was like, he didn't know. He didn't. Wow. He was just programmed. Right. He did not know. But I was like, and so I drew a line in the sand. I said, look, you didn't know you were asleep, but now you're awake. Yeah. You know, now everything you do, like, that was necessary. So you're going to, part of your healing journey is to forgive yourself. Yeah. That stuff when you were asleep and you got conditioning from your environment, from your parents, from your peers, from everything, to create that asleep version of what you thought you wanted. But now that you've had this thing and you woke up, what powerful transformation that will be if you can do it. Right. And so sometimes we need to be asleep so we can develop those skills and experiences, so then they'll all be necessary for, you know, whatever's next. So I just kind of wanted to add that.
Dude, that's beautiful, man. Absolutely. It's a process. It's always a process.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been really amazing. I'm so glad for what you're doing and your energy and spirit, and it inspires me. Where can people, if they want to get engaged, you know, what are the ways that they can get engaged, and where should they go?
Yeah, they can check us out at Food Forest Abundance, and there's a Grow With Us tab if you want to explore being in the business of helping people be prepared and grow food, which is fantastic. If you want to get a design, you can look up our design blueprints for your own yard, and I would love to personally talk with you. So my number's on there, and yeah, let's create a future of abundance for our grandkids and beyond. It's the next logical step.
Absolutely. And I just looked at YouTube real quick. Someone's saying, do you have a channel?
Oh, yes. Food Forest Abundance. 3 words, I believe. If not, then you can look on the website, foodforestabundance.com, and then it's all there.
Amazing. Well, what a beautiful and powerful initiative. Such a pleasure to connect with you. I invite everybody to share the mother effing crap out of this episode. It's so, like, share it on Facebook Messenger. They're going to block it, but share it anyway. Instagram, all the different platforms to get stuff like this out there, because this is such a brilliant and simple solution. And that's how we spread the words. So, and engage in whatever way works for you. I could go for a food forest on my lawn. So thanks so much for your time and your effort. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for listening. Peace.